number 10 spot, we have the iconic movie, The Matrix. I can admit, I thought this movie was just about how cool Keanu Reeves is. But it turns out there's a lot more. The movie is really about how humanity's idea of reality is dying. When Morpheus shows Neo the world as it really is, he welcomes him to the desert of the real. That line is actually taken from a book by the philosopher Jean Baudrillard called Simulacra and Simulation. This book is actually in Neo's apartment, and it is open to a chapter on nihilism. This really drives home the movie's message about reality and what that means. Nihilism is the belief that all beliefs are meaningless, kind of like the inception of ideologies. The movie also touches on how many of the people living inside our systems don't realize that we're in a system because we've never had the opportunity to step out and see it from the outside perspective. It's definitely an interesting thought, and maybe if we're able to run with this idea a little bit, it could help us improve the world that we live in.
Coming in at number 9, we have World War Z, one of the better movies to come out of the huge surge of zombie flicks that came when zombies were the biggest thing hitting the film industry. It had Brad Pitt fully formed into his dad role, and he was tasked with saving the world from a zombie pandemic. I mean, it's a zombie movie, I didn't have to tell you the plot for you to figure it out. But some people think that this movie, and many others like it, are the work of the Illuminati. Whoa! There's a conspiracy theory that the massive surge of zombie movies was all because the Illuminati wanted to condition us to the idea of a massive viral outbreak. Basically to numb our senses so when they release a global pandemic for real, no one freaks out, and they keep going on with business as usual. Some people think that the current pandemic that we're in could be the work of these evil plague political puppeteers, which might be believable if this was the first time that there ever had been a global pandemic, but these things pop up about once every 100 years, so it's actually par for the course.
Moving on to number 8, we have the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock classic horror film, Psycho. By now, we all know the movie goes, creepy Norman Bates runs a cheap motel and has a really cool and good and nice relationship with his mother, except for one major problem: she's actually been dead for years.
Spoilers.
Norman has basically taken on his mother's persona, and when a young woman stops at the motel and Norman is attracted to her, his mother's personality goes out and kills her. It's weird. Anyway, just a little spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but at the end when Norman is thankfully getting arrested, there's a little moment that I missed while watching that's super creepy. During the arrest, Norman's mother is really taking over his mind, and we hear a voiceover of his thoughts, but it's actually his mother's voice. But then, just for a brief second, while the camera is lingering over Norman's face, we see an overlay of his mother's skull over his face. This shot is creepy on its own, but it is Hitchcock's way of giving us a visual representation of the extremely dark reality that is inside Norman's mind.
Coming in at number 7, we have Anchorman, one of the best comedies of its time. It's when Will Ferrell was at the peak of making dirty comedies, and this one had a ton of amazing jokes, and the writing staff launched this movie into the category of best of all time. But one of the best jokes in the whole movie was hidden to a lot of moviegoers and could definitely be seen as dark depending on how you view it. There's one scene in the movie where Veronica Corningstone is out to dinner with some female employees from the news channel, and this is where they come up with the plot to throw out Ron Burgundy and usher in a new era of news reporting. Well, it just so happens to be that they are at a Mexican restaurant, and just so happens the name of that restaurant is Escupimos en su alimento. And if we get into the English translation, we get "we spit in your food." That is an amazing bit that just flew over the heads of anyone who doesn't speak Spanish. But it also makes you think back to every restaurant you have been in and what they might have done with your food.
Continuing on to number 6, we have the incredible Jordan Peele movie, Get Out. While the message of the movie gets across to the viewer pretty directly, I was surprised to find out a few hidden moments that were included to really drive home its theme. One of these moments is the famous teacup scene where Missy is stirring her tea in a cup, making a repetitive sound to give off the same hypnotic effect as a swinging pocket watch in order to put Chris into a trance. What I didn't know is that the teacup is actually symbolic of a time when slave masters would use a teacup in order to summon the people that they had enslaved. That's pretty messed up. The silver spoon that she uses to stir the tea is symbolic of the family's status in life, born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Another hidden message in the movie is basically the entire character of Rod. In the movie, the comedian Lil Rel Howery plays Chris's best friend Rod and is the movie's voice of reason. Jordan Peele has explained that this character is mimicking how black people watching horror movies would often interact with the films, especially considering the upsetting trope that black people are usually the first to get killed in horror movies. Rod says the things that people are yelling at the screen, like "get out of the house" or "don't go in there." Rod is also there to show that there is usually a higher percentage of black people watching horror movies than are being represented on screen.
Coming in number 5, we have RoboCop. This one was very shocking to me. Did you know that the movie RoboCop is actually about Jesus Christ?
What?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, this story of a robot man with a handgun taking out crime is based on the story of Jesus. And this isn't just speculation, this was stated by the director of the movie, Paul Verhoeven. And when you watch the movie knowing this, you can see the not so subtle hints towards Jesus. The movie starts with a man who's trying to do good, and then he is horribly betrayed and killed by people that he thought were his friends. This is his crucifixion. Then we see him resurrected, more powerful than ever before. Obviously, Jesus had less robot parts in his resurrection. After that, you have him go on a quest for justice, and he must confront the people who stabbed him in the back. And if you're still not sold, at the end of the movie, you have RoboCop walking across a very shallow level of water to make it seem as if he was walking on water. I never knew RoboCop was Christian.
Coming in at number 4, we have one of the most classic psychological horror movies ever, The Shining. On the surface, the movie is really just about a guy who goes to a hotel to interview for a caretaker job, and absolute mania ensues. But what is the movie hiding? Well, it is mentioned early on in the movie that the hotel was built over an Indian burial ground. The hotel even seems to boast about this fact, and it really sets the scene for the imagery to come that shows the movie's underlying theme of the Europeans' genocide of indigenous people. The movie's director, Stanley Kubrick, placed a lot of subtle references in everything from wardrobe to set decoration and even to the film's score. Some even believe that the scene with the blood pouring out of the elevator is a symbol for bringing up what is below the hotel. The final piece of imagery in the movie is the fact that it ends off with Jack at a 4th of July party. Many believe that the 4th of July is a holiday that best represents settlers' false claims to the land that once belonged solely to indigenous people.
Coming in number 3, we have Godzilla, maybe the most famous monster movie of all time. Godzilla movies are great, and the massive lizard tearing down the world brought with it the entire kaiju movie genre. Well, here's something that you didn't know about this movie, or at least I didn't know about the movie, but they were inspired by the Nagasaki and Hiroshima nuclear attacks. Yeah, when you hear that, it actually makes perfect sense. The first Godzilla movie came out in the 50s. At this point, Japan was definitely still in the throes of dealing with a nuclear disaster. Radiation sickness was a real thing, and something that the entire country was terrified of. And what causes Godzilla to be created? Well, it's a nuclear radiated lizard. In the movie, they even take samples from the monster's footprints, and they find massive levels of radiation coming off the creature. It could be why this movie was such a big hit. It brought together an entire country to get entertained by something that was a common fear.
Moving on down to number 2, we have the X-Men. They are fierce and we love them, but what is the hidden message behind these mutant warriors? If you've ever wondered why the X-Men are always facing political issues, it's because they are meant to mirror our real-life marginalized groups, more specifically members of the LGBTQIA+ community. The mutants' powers usually begin to manifest around puberty, the same time that humans begin to discover sexuality, and a lot of the mutants feel shame about who they are and their special abilities. Colonel Stryker is the franchise's example of the prejudice and phobias that people in our world have to deal with, and why things like pride are so important. The series shows scenes of mutants coming out to very angry and upset parents, which is a very real and unfortunate situation that many people in queer communities have to deal with every single day. You can totally see why Magneto is so angry and fights for the freedom of the mutants to just be who they are. We should all take a page out of Magneto's book and fight for everyone to be treated the same, because love is love is love is love.
Alright guys, coming to the number 1 spot, we have Fight Club. Fight Club is an extremely rich movie that is packed with subtle messages. Every time I see this movie, there is something more to take out of it. Like, I don't know if you know this, but there's the famous scene in Fight Club where Edward Norton has to throw himself down the stairs. They shot this scene over 30 times, and Fight Club's director, David Fincher, ended up using the first take, but that's not the dark hidden message. Partway through Fight Club, we have Tyler Durden, who's played by Brad Pitt. And something that this character does for poops and giggles is splice in scenes from pornos into family-friendly movies at the movie theater that he works at.
Oh, that's nasty.
And if you watch the movie Fight Club very closely, you can see that Tyler Durden's character pops up before he's actually introduced to the movie. Director David Fincher splices him into certain scenes for just a second, because we all know the ending of Fight Club, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen this movie. Tyler Durden is actually the split personality that manifests itself inside the main character's mind.
Starting us off this countdown, we have Burger King. Now this one is quite NSFW, not safe for work. And I can't believe Burger King got away with it. So in 2009, Burger King launched an advertisement campaign to promote its new 7-inch burger. But their advertisement was very raunchy. It features a surprised-looking woman with her mouth open, facing the product. The caption reads, "It'll blow your mind away." Now, if I have to explain that to you, then you're too young to be on YouTube. Seriously, they're using this woman as a way to sell the product. There's no need to include that kind of imagery since the product has nothing to do with intimate activities. It's solely there to attract you to buy the burger. In our 9th spot, we have Husker Du. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then you know the drill. Hit that thumbs up button because it really helps us out. Husker Du was an old school memory board game. Basically, you take turns flipping tiles to try and get 2 images of the same pattern. Well, in 1973, the company came out with a very creepy ad. During the ad, there were several times where the words "get it" would flash across the screen, literally trying to convince the watchers to invest in their board game. In fact, this is said to be the first example of subliminal messages used in advertising on television. It's pretty insane how from there it just kind of snowballed. In our 8th spot, we have Little Baby's Ice Cream. This has to be the creepiest advertisement on this list. It was created by an ice cream company known as Little Baby's Ice Cream. Kind of a creepy name, not gonna lie. Their intentions were to purposely make an ad that would make the viewer feel uncomfortable watching it, but also to draw them in. And it worked. This ad is so disturbing to the point where you just can't look away. You want to, but you also want to know what on earth is going on. So you keep watching it.
I eat Little Baby's ice cream. It keeps me young. It keeps me light on my feet. I spring from activity to activity.
Isn't that the creepiest ad you have ever seen? It's super creepy. But while you're distracted by the man eating ice cream off of his head, the narrator is telling you how happy your life would be with this ice cream.
I love my job. I love my life. When you eat Little Baby's ice cream, you'll wink and nod and hug and high-five each other with great enthusiasm. This is a special time.
And guess what? This ad was a huge success. Shortly after it was aired, it became viral, with millions of people watching this ad online. So in this case, their weird dark ad was very effective for their company. In our 7th spot, we have rats. So back in 2000, in George W. Bush's campaign ad, it makes it clear that he's not a fan of Al Gore's healthcare plan. In fact, he called him a rat. Or so it appears to be that way. So in the 30-second advertisement, white block letters spelling out the word rats flashes across the screen while criticizing Al Gore's healthcare plan. It was then revealed that it was a fragment of the word bureaucrats. Now, Bush denied that this was intentional, but still, if it's true, that's crazy and a creative way to get people to turn against Al Gore. But this ad was deemed too controversial and eventually pulled from air. In our 6th spot, we have the money sandwich. KFC is back at it again. Honestly, I could do a whole separate video on just subliminal messages found in food advertisements, because there's just so many. So this commercial was run in 2008 when KFC released their Meal Dollar Snacker. The commercial featured a close-up of this juicy chicken sandwich. But someone noticed towards the end of the commercial that a dollar bill was seen within the sandwich's lettuce. Why would they do this? Well, for a number of reasons. Basically, it's a subliminal way of telling customers to spend their money on the sandwich. That's really creepy in my opinion. Like, we can't just have normal ads anymore. No, they all have to come with some hidden meaning. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Marlboro. Marlboro is a pretty famous brand of cigarettes, Back in the day, they were pushing their cigarettes like crazy with brand deals and ads. In the late 90s to early 2000s, many professional sporting organizations that would promote this brand expressed concern on the amount of cigarette advertising there was in Formula One racing. Because back then, race car drivers had that logo on their jackets, on their cars, it was just everywhere. So what does this brand do? They are super sneaky. They basically created this barcode design to put on race cars. The barcode up close just looks like a regular barcode. But at high speeds, when the cars are racing, you could see the logo. But eventually they were caught for this and the design was removed. They apologized and said this, and I quote, "The barcode was never intended to be anything other than a neutral design. One that was not linked to the sale of tobacco products." Okay, sure. Coming in at number 4, we have SFX magazine. SFX is a sci-fi magazine that was founded in 1995. SFX stands for Special Effects. You might see characters from your favorite shows on the front cover of the magazine. Now, this magazine has been called out a number of times. Why? Well, apparently, they often place the actors on the front cover right under the F of SFX. Their heads cover the end of the F, so it looks like it actually is an E, and that the cover looks like it spells SEX. In fact, women are often the ones on the cover of the magazine. Other times when men are on the cover, this isn't the case. Why would they do this? Well, to attract more buyers. A lot of companies often sexualize women in order to increase sales. In our third spot, we have the Intel ad. Back in 2007, Intel released an ad that was blatantly racist. So as you can see, there appears to be 6 muscular black runners bowing down in front of a white businessman. The headline reads, "Maximize the power of your employees." Now, a lot of people were furious about this ad, since it seems like it's implying that white men hold a dominance over colored men. They even made connections to slavery. I know that the men are supposed to be like in a ready, set, go racing position, but it honestly looks like they're bowing down to their superiority. As a result of the backlash Intel received, they attempted to pull the ad before it ran, but one publication still printed it. And in our number 1 spot, we have Pepsi. This next message is quite dark. So under the lid of a Pepsi bottle, people found a disturbing message. The message read, "Help me, trapped in Sobe factory." Well, a lot of people were convinced that someone was being forced to work there against their own will. A lot of people shared their findings on social media to raise attention to this worker in danger. Well, turns out that this whole thing was just a marketing scheme. Like, how dark is that? Pretending a worker is trapped in a factory just so Pepsi could be talked about more online and have more attention brought to their drinks. I know, it's crazy.
In at the number 10 spot, we have "Good teenagers, take off your clothes," and that was a phrase said in the popular movie Aladdin. What? So in the scene, Aladdin and the magic carpet fly up to Jasmine's balcony, only to find Jasmine's tiger Raja was up there. You can hear a little subtle voice in the background that supposedly says, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." In order to hear this, you actually have to turn up your TV really loud. Disney released a statement saying, in the movie Aladdin, it doesn't actually say that. What? What are you guys hearing? It actually says, "Come on, good kitty, take off and go." The rumor started in 1993 when Aladdin was released to VHS. And at the number 9 spot, the word sex is spelled out in the Lion King movie. A 4-year-old boy from New York actually spotted this image while he was watching the movie. So just around halfway through the movie, there was a cloud of dust that forms when Simba, Pumbaa, and Timon were gazing into the stars while on a cliff. If you actually watch carefully, the newly formed dust appears to spell out SEX. Of course, Disney had a rebuttal, and they said that the image actually spells SFX, and there's not that line on that E. It was inserted by the special effects group, so it's supposed to spell like special effects abbreviated.